Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guests are Becky, Wuest, Creavin, and Patti, Janco, Tupper. Patti and Becky are wealth managers with a specialty in helping suddenly single women through death or divorce gain control over their financial world so they can live their best lives. So, what do you do when you find yourself suddenly single? If you're facing divorce, about to divorce, or even on the other side of it, join me for this episode where I'm speaking with two wealth managers who specialize in helping those who find themselves suddenly single. Here we go. Okay, everybody, I am here today with Becky, Wuest, Creavin, and Patti, Janco, Tupper. These are actually people that I have known for years and years and years. We met years ago when I was in health, and then everybody was just sort of doing their own thing, going their own way, and we reconnected not long ago. And when they found out what I was up to with the PBT Institute, helping people move through betrayal, and then when I found out what they were doing, it was an absolute no-brainer to get them on the show. So what we're going to be talking about today is what in the world do you do when you're suddenly single? Welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Deb, for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We're so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to really dive into this conversation because it is a common thing that with betrayal, sometimes there can be reconciliation, rebuilding, an entirely new relationship when both of you have crashed and burned and you rebuild from the absolute ground up. But for, let's say, the betrayer who has no intention of changing, then it is not in anyone's best interest to keep that going because that's just a lifetime of punishment. So in that case, divorce may be something that's an option for you. So as wealth managers, if you're thinking about divorce, speak to our audience about what are some things that someone should be considering.
So maybe I should take that one. Does that work?
Yep.
So the first thing to do is plan, not to say anything. You know, oftentimes with betrayal and divorce, you don't see it coming. But if it's something that you're choosing to do, you have the time to plan. And what you need to do is figure out where all the financial bodies are buried. And this means everything from your what do you own in terms of cash, marketable securities, properties? What do you owe? Credit cards, mortgages, whatnot. Are you personally responsible for them? Oftentimes we see with women as they're approaching divorce, they may not have their own credit, and it becomes very hard for them to establish their own credit. Well, while you're still married is the time to get that credit established. Another really super important thing to do is to make sure you know who all the advisors for your family are, right? Oftentimes we have a tendency to delegate to the husband, you take care of it, it's boring, we don't want to do it, it's no fun, we've got better things to do, we're busy with children and family and whatnot, and we don't necessarily pay attention to who are the family's advisors. Know who your accountant is. Know who your investment advisor is. Know who your attorneys are for anything that your family might be involved in. And not just know them, make a relationship with them. Because the truth of the matter is that 90% of women choose a different advisor as they're going through a divorce, which may not be necessary if you have a relationship and you get to know these people. It seems like there's so much disruption when you're going through divorce. It's nice to have the relationship with your advisors so you can avoid that. So, one of the things that Becky and I do for our clients is we put together a book which tells them where all the bodies are buried. And this is something that we do with people, whether they're divorced or not, because everybody should know where everything is. And this is something that we encourage everybody to do to make sure they know where everything is.
Yeah, no, that's great. It makes total sense. And, it's one of those things where we don't see this coming. So as far as the planning, that may be a hard thing. Give us a timeline where, let's say you feel divorce is coming. Is there a certain timeline to start this planning if you have that time available?
Yesterday.
Yeah, I would say, we encourage all of our clients to include their spouse in annual meetings just so that they know what's going on. Now, if you've chosen not to do that and now divorce is upon you and you didn't see it coming and you haven't done all that, there are some things that you should start to do for yourself. You need to understand your own personal spending. You need to really analyze it. Lots of times we go through just charging what we need to charge on our credit card, the bill gets paid, and we don't really have a grasp on what we're spending and why we're spending it. And if you're going to be separated or divorced, you're going to need to understand that. You're also going to need to understand the cost to maintain the assets that you have, like your home. We see very often, especially for women, women get caught up in the family home or the family vacation property. There's just so many memories that we have there, and we want our children to feel like they can come there anytime. But sometimes we don't look to see how much are the property taxes, how much is the insurance, how much does it cost to have the lawn mowed or the HOA fees. And all of it's really, really important to understand when you're going through this. And then you have to understand your own relationship with money. Are you a saver? Are you a spender? That makes a huge impact on the way that you're going to move forward. And you need to recognize what your tendencies are so that you can deal with that. And the other thing is, if you're going through this, sometimes people own complex assets like businesses or artwork, and you need to just start thinking, how would I like this to be divided up? So that you're not just blindsided by it, that you're starting to devise a plan for yourself. And you don't have to have the plan at this point. You just need to start thinking about the plan. Did that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Now, I always try to get into the minds of my viewers and listeners, and with some of them, they are blindsided. You mentioned the word blindsided. They're blindsided by their betrayal, and it's hijacking half their mind. Really, it is completely offline. So for that person, let's speak to that person about they've been betrayed. Now they're about to get divorced. Their mind is being hijacked by all of the ground has been, taken out from under them. For that person, what would be a first step? Like, because it sounds great, all this planning and all the different areas to look, but speak to that person. What does that person need to do first, second, third, so they really can be like, okay, I know I have to do this. Let's go.
I think I can speak to that from personal experience. I was divorced in my early 30s with a brand new baby, had just bought a home, had no idea what anything cost. And, my husband decided to take another road. So the first thing that I did, I was obviously, and you're completely freaked out. You don't know where to turn. You don't know what to do next. Your mind constantly spins. It's something that you can't get off your mind, no matter what you're doing. You have no idea what you can afford or what you can't afford because, particularly if you're blindsided, you didn't see it coming and you didn't know what you had to do. So the first thing you do is figure out exactly what you're spending. Okay. You take out that Amex and you look at what you're spending and you see what's necessary and what's nice, and start crossing off the nice and paring down the necessary until you get to a number that you can comfortably afford by yourself. And you basically just have to look at everything you did over the course of the last month, the last 3 months, the last year, and come up with a number. Don't forget about, extraordinary expenses that may happen. I know when this happened to me, my car died. I had it wasn't brand new, but I had a 3-year-old car and it died on the side of the road at 3 years. Very unintended, big expense that comes when you're facing a divorce. So keep cash, get as much cash as you can get your paws on, and then figure out what it costs you to live, because that will give you the peace of mind and sense of control when you get your arms around what does everything cost and what do you make.
You know, I love that you said that about a sense of control, because when it comes to betrayal and divorce, you feel like the reins have been taken out completely away and everything is out of control. So finding out how much you're spending on your life, the expenses that you have, the sort of non-negotiables, is just a really good way to just regain that sense of control. And I love how you said figure out the difference between the necessities and the nice, because there are, like, let's say that latte, it's nice. Do we need that? No. So I guess it's things like that we need to look at, and of course so much more. So okay, so the first step then would be, let's just assess what we're spending and how much money we have. Is there, once we do that and we realize, okay, you know what, I can cut back on this, I can let go of that, this is how I'm spending, how much I'm spending, is there something else, a next step, or even a mental or emotional way to look at things at that next point that someone can say, okay, that's what I do next?
Yeah, I would say, Debbie, very often that people, okay, they put together their spending, now what? So can I afford my life? Now I know what I'm spending, but can I afford it? And I would say they should really consult with a good financial advisor, somebody who can run some illustrations for them to say, here's how much you have, here's how much income you have coming in, here's how much you spend. You're a young person, you're going to live how many long years? Is this sustainable? So you've cut off the lattes, like you said. Is it sustainable? And a good financial advisor will be able to run the numbers and illustrate and show a picture to folks that you either can or you can't.
Mhm.
So we always say it's really important to know whether you can afford that thing that you really feel that you need, your home, that vacation, whatever it is. I really need this. Can I afford it? It's really important for you to know up front that you can or you can't. You don't want to spend all your money and then find out 5 years from now, I really should have sold my house because I couldn't afford it. And a good financial advisor will help you walk through that thought process.
Yeah.
And if
And,
if I could just add to that,
sure.
One thing that we find a lot with ladies is they have a tendency to want to keep property, whether it's a home, whether it's a vacation home, whether they can afford it or not. They want to create stability for their children. So they take that house instead of liquidity or marketable securities. And then they find themselves in a position where they can't afford to maintain that house and are forced to sell that house. So a good financial advisor can take you through the exercise to know, this is the settlement that's being proposed to me, and do I have enough money to fund the things that I would like to do? Or would it be better for me to sell that house and reduce my lifestyle in order to accommodate my new life?
That makes a ton of sense. And what was coming up for me as both of you were sharing this, is the fear of change, the fear of the unknown, just the fear of the future, all of it. And I think that's why we may tend to grasp so tightly on something like a home, because that is our stability, our safety, security, or we think, so we think. And it's to anything to minimize that fear, because there are so many unknowns we're venturing into now. Anything that seems remotely familiar and safe would seem like something that's worth hanging on to, so to speak.
It is totally scary, Debbie. And, that's why we talk about these illustrations, because it's impossible for somebody to say, today I have this amount of money, I'm going to live 30 years. What does 30 years away look like? I can't do it just thinking about it. You probably can't do it just thinking about it. And so what you find is, if you're working with somebody who has this specialty and expertise, they can give you a sense of comfort that I'm making decisions today that 20, 30 years down the road, I'm going to be okay. And that is really very satisfying when you're going through a betrayal and an upheaval, like the way that you might in a divorce.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about attorneys, because this is something, and I know so many people saying it's either taking so long because of the attorneys, it's so expensive. And I think that's why some people move towards mediation, thinking that's a better way to go. Give us your, some ideas around attorneys and what you need.
I think a lot of ladies think that they need a shark, right? They've been betrayed and it's like, okay, now let's kill him. All right. And you may not need that. That may not be, better than anyone else. Generally after an event like this, when your husband has done something like this, he's going to feel a little bit more guilty. And this is your time to capitalize on that in your negotiations so that you get more. Now, there are attorneys that are sharks who are, born to kill, and sometimes you need that, but sometimes you don't. You can go for, some sort of sponsored mediation if you know that particularly if your husband is particularly money focused, he's going to want to get to a resolution and not spend money on attorneys. So mediation may be the solution there. If there are items that are unreconcilable, usually around child custody as an example is where people can't agree, or the sale of a business. That's when you're going to need a tougher kind of attorney. Your ex-spouse's personality, and you should select your counsel based on what you think is going to work best for you and him. You want it to be over with quickly. You want blood. Yeah, you're going to get blood, but you're going to probably end up spending more to the attorneys than you might have. You may deplete all of your assets on attorney's fees rather than creating your own safety and well-being. So you need to keep that in mind.
Just want to add two things here. First of all, and just to qualify this, Patti and Becky serve women for the most part, but we know betrayal happens and divorce happens to men as well. So I just want to make sure everything that they're suggesting can also be reversed, where the wife wants the divorce and the wife is the one who betrayed. So I just want to sort of lay that out there. And the other part to this too is, and this is just coming from my area of expertise, the betrayal piece. Yes, you may want revenge. Yes, you may think, okay, let me get as much money as I can and all of this. But I would suggest that you also want to keep, let's say you have children, you want to keep the kids in mind. As you're moving through all of this, that other partner is still their parent, and that won't change. Keep that in mind as you're moving through all of this. And to take it a step further, instead of navigating and negotiating all of this through the eyes of where you are now, you may want to consult that version of you who, sees things from a healthy, whole, healed space. What would they do? And sometimes tapping into that version has you acting, thinking, reacting, behaving a little bit differently. So great advice. Just want to make sure we qualify that definitely men go through this as well. And definitely we want to do this in a place where we look back and say, I handled that as well as I could.
100%. It applies to anybody who's going through this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about now. Okay, so you don't necessarily need a shark. Great if you do, not necessary. Let's talk about post-divorce. Unpack that for us, please.
Yeah. So, sometimes people think, all right, I have my divorce, I'm done. But you're really not. There are so many things that you have in your life that may have been revolving around your spouse that you may now need to undo. So, for example, sometimes you name a spouse as a beneficiary to your retirement accounts, to your bank accounts, to your investment accounts. You probably don't want that to continue. So that's something that you need to change. Perhaps you had insurance with your spouse, whether it was life insurance, even if you had your spouse as the beneficiary of your life insurance, you may want to change that. So you have to go through all of these things, your medical, your long-term care, all of these things that may have been tied up with your spouse that you really need to remember to go through and undo. And so, Patti and I and many good financial folks and lawyers have these checklists that you really need to go through when you're finalizing your divorce. The problem is a lot of people don't. And so one of the things that we do with our clients is we just keep tabs on all of the things that they're supposed to do and gently nudge them, because it's really important. You don't want to be surprised, or your kids to be surprised that, oh shoot, everything went to the ex when we're not talking to that person anymore, or whatever the situation may be. You also may have new obligations. So maybe you're now responsible for your children and some of the expenses that they have. And you may be responsible for parents, elderly parents, and helping them through their situation. And your home, now you're absorbing all of those things. So you have to consider all of these things and what's important to you. You have to go through and really self-analyze what are the things that are the most important to you that you want to dedicate changing your financial life to make them agree and align with your personal values and morals.
Beautiful. Is there a timeline you see where things are moving appropriately and effectively? Do you see something happen within a certain time period? Like, what's a healthy timeline for this?
I would say 6 months to a year, you should have everything completed. I mean, it's great if you can do it sooner. Sometimes financial institutions don't work so swiftly, but you should focus on it right away, but wouldn't be surprised if it takes 6 months to a year to accomplish all of this.
I mean, that's
depending
totally,
on your
totally fair.
mindset. If you're
Yeah.
really stunned, it may be hard to do.
Yeah.
And one thing that I would add, it's not just what you need to do, it's what your spouse needs to do. And making sure that that gets done. And that's part of what a good advisor will help you with. Because as an example, oftentimes there'll be a requirement for life insurance as a result of a divorce. And people will sign an agreement and have every intention of doing what they're supposed to be doing on the good side, or have no intention of doing it on the bad side. But you need to make sure that you're keeping track not only of what you promised, but what your ex-spouse has promised, because sometimes that falls through the cracks as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Is there a story? I would love to hear from one of you, a success story, someone you worked with where they maybe didn't have a clue about financial anything, and they were headed for divorce, and how they moved through it and where they are now.
I would say that Becky and I, this is the best part of our practice, is seeing someone who, when you're divorced and you're scared and that hallway seems so dark, so scary, and it can take years to walk through that hallway, but at the end of the hallway is a door, and we help those ladies walk through it, or men. We've done it with men too. And when they get to the other side and they're full, happy, complete human beings, no longer damaged, and who feel in control of their life, that this is really a wonderful thing. And we've done this with people who are going through divorce, people who have suddenly lost their spouse, which can be equally as scary, where, people, we had one lady as an example who lost her spouse suddenly, and he did absolutely everything for her. Absolutely everything. And even we went to the point of even helping her look at the leases for her daughter when she went to college, to make sure that the leases were proper. I mean, she would ask us basically everything. But the not a dumb woman, a very smart woman, and just by exposing people to what their choices are and allowing them to make those choices for the first time and see them grow, because she went from saying, oh gosh, can I afford to have coffee with my bereavement group, to truly understanding what her expenses were, what she could do and what she couldn't do. And if she wanted to go shopping, she could go shopping and she could afford it and she could buy her kid that car or whatever it is that was on the way. So she went from complete deer in headlights to someone who isn't completely in control of her life. And it's a wonderful situation. We even helped her adopt a dog.
Beautiful.
So there are many, many stories like that of people who we were able to help take from, like, deer in headlights to someone with clarity and happiness in their life.
Oh, I love that. As we wrap up, what's something you want everyone to know?
I would say a lot of times we find that the person who was not taking care of the finances, and oftentimes it's the woman, that they apologize for not being more sophisticated with their finances and money. And we always say to them, look, we're not experts in your field. You wouldn't expect us to know everything about your field. Don't apologize for not knowing everything about money. A good advisor will help you feel comfortable the same way a good doctor would help you feel comfortable about your health. And so don't apologize, ask questions, take control, and really refuse to be dismissed and overlooked, and demand the attention that you need in order to understand your situation and understand the path forward.
I love that.
And I would add to that, do not allow yourself to be placated, right? Which often happens with advisors. They say, everything's going to be okay. We'll take care of that. No, peel it back, understand what's going on, ask the questions.
Yeah, important, especially at a time where we're redefining who we are, who we are ready to become. Part of that is we need to be empowered, and that's when we know what we're doing with our own lives, for sure. So this has been so helpful, and I know you helped so many people with what you shared today. Where do we go to learn more about you and what you do?
So I would say go to our LinkedIn profiles. It's the best way to do it. And I'm Becky Wuest Creavin. I think my name is on the link up there. Patti, here is Patti Janco Tupper. I think on LinkedIn you're Patricia, right, Patti? So it's the best way. It's the easiest way to reach out. If you can contact us through there, it's the easiest way.
Perfect. And we'll have all the information in the show notes. Patti, Becky, I want to thank you so much for your wisdom, for paving the road for others who are now moving through something they never saw coming, and helping them come out of it even better than before. Thank you so much.
Debbie, thank you. And thank you for guiding all these people through betrayal and to the other side.
So many great ideas, especially the idea of a plan for before, during, and after the divorce process. Stay in touch with Becky and Patti by going to their LinkedIn accounts at Becky Wuest Creavin or Patti Janco Tupper, and we'll have all of their information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. 1, plan beforehand. 2, get advisors like an accountant, attorney, investment advisors, and create relationships. 3, analyze your spending along with the cost to maintain your assets. 4, determine what's necessary versus what's nice. 5, ask lots of questions and don't apologize for not knowing everything there is to know about your finances. Your attention is probably on a million other things, so give yourself a break and find the support you need. Of course, we can help you with that support too, and we even have a certified PBT coach who specializes in separation and divorce within the PBT Institute to help you navigate the process. Private sessions with our coaches are included in our Reclaim program. So don't wait. Get the support you need by joining us at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time. And here's to your breakthrough.